In the Atlantic Park neighborhood, just northwest of Seatack, was the home of one of our area's midwives. She was a lifeline for her community. And in the 1940s and 50s, if you were Black and pregnant, you probably asked for her.
Her name was Ethel Parker, but very well known in this area. And people, long after she was gone, and they still talk about her today. You know, one gentleman I will never forget, he saw me in the grocery store, and he told me, he said, "I remember your grandmother." He said, "You look so much like your grandmother." I said, "Well, thank you. I take it as a compliment." And he said, "Because I remember when she delivered all 7 of his children." He said he did not have food in his refrigerator. And he was on his 7th baby right then. He said, but when he got up the next morning, she had went to the store and bought all these groceries, left them on her step, and for the whole family. You know, and those are the little things that she used to do, you know, for the people. She would feed them. She was a hospitality extraordinaire.
That is Reverend Jean Thoroughgood. She's Ethel's granddaughter, and she grew up shadowing her grandmother and learning how to deliver babies. There were not many Black midwives at that time, and so Ethel and her young apprentice Jean were kept very busy.
I've gone with her when she delivered babies. She never let me in the room, but I was actually there. And so I would go out and I would sit and I would make sure that she has everything in her bag. And she said, make sure that you got, I got my sizzles, I got this. I have all these things that you need when the baby comes. Make sure she has her white uniform, and I would wear something white, and she would have on her white shoes. And that's the way she went and she delivered babies. And so I would sit there. And I hear the cry, and then she would come out and she would let me hold the baby. And I would be the first one to hold the baby. She would let me, sometimes I watched her cut the cord. She allowed me to wash him up and clean him up and do all that with her standing right there. Our home was a home of a midwife. I was born in that house. My sister was born in that house. I have cousins that was born in that house. Many people were born in that house. The house still stands today. People will come. I have a cousin that lived in Norfolk, and they will come down to have babies.
Highway 264, which connects Norfolk to Ethel's home, wasn't constructed until 1970. For years, pregnant women traveled along dirt roads to get to Ethel's and deliver their babies at her house.
And so we get the room together, and there was one room that specifically she used to deliver babies. And I was right there with her doing all of that. And I treasure all of those because nobody had to tell it to me. I truly had the opportunity to live it. I lived it. And it means so much to me. Hospital-wise, there was one hospital in what we call now Virginia Beach. It was on 25th Street down the beach. But it was not open to us. Most of the babies during that time were done by midwives.
The only hospital that would deliver the babies of expectant Black mothers was Norfolk Community Hospital, the quote-unquote Black hospital. Eventually, in 1966, hospitals were desegregated. But even then, they were a far cry from welcoming.
And then when it was Virginia Beach General, as a matter of fact, and when they did open it up to allow them to come in, it was actually like they were down in the basement. You can go down in the basement. Your baby can go up on it in the nursery, but the mothers had to stay down in the basement. I mean, the options were few. Years later, they were able to go to the clinic.
But once the clinic and the hospital became options, there were still some considerations. Cost, trust, dignity. This led most women to choose Ethel. She delivered anywhere from 75 to 100 babies a year. Sometimes it was 4 or 5 a month. Sometimes it was 3 and 4 a week.
And I can remember a time where my grandmother and I shared the bedroom. And in the bedroom, there was a bassinet that was next to my bed, because I had that duty. Okay. And then there was another bassinet beside my grandmother's bed because she had that duty. And then one Christmas, my sister and I got miniature doll baby cribs. And after we outgrew those, they were put in the attic. And when people would come to have babies, they actually used that little crib toy. During that time, they had to stay there for a week. They had to stay there for a week, and then we had to make sure that they ate and make sure we took care of them. And I was help taking care of the baby. I've been changing babies since I was like 9 years old. And she would let me feed the baby. She showed me how to mix the formulas. And during that time, if they were not breastfeeding, there was a milk. Are you familiar with carnation milk? You familiar with patent milk? That was the milk. But you had to make sure you had the right consistency of it. You had to have the right milk and boil the water in Karo syrup. That's how you did. And then you had to sterilize the bottles because you had the sterilizer on the stove. Put the bottles in there and then fill the bottles and then sit them on the side and so they can cool. Make sure they had the nipple on the inside of the bottle. There was not, nipples don't stay on the outside. On the inside, there was a little cap with it. You take them, you put them in the refrigerator, and that was it. We had so many bottles in the house one time. Yeah, I'm telling you, everybody had bottles. Because I remember there had been times when we've had more than one person in the house at a time. And make sure those bottles belongs to baby over this side. And we never had them in the same place. The house only had one bathroom.
Ethel charged $35 to $40 for delivery, if you could pay. If not, she still helped. She did still have to pay for groceries and care for her own family. So in addition to being her community's midwife, she also had a day job.
And also she was a cook. There was this place, it was called the Oceanair Rest Home. And that Oceanair Rest Home was a place for alcoholics. And she actually worked there from 7 in the morning to 7 in the evening, preparing their breakfast, lunch, and their dinner. That's basically what she did on that part, other than doing private duty nursing when she was still doing that as well. So mostly, I only remember my grandmother even working in that facility or delivering babies. I don't remember her ever doing anything else other than that. My husband's the best thing that could have ever happened to me. We attended the same church years ago. He didn't look my way and I didn't look his. But as we grew up, we went to high school together and all of that. And so he had married before and then all that. And we never even thought about it until I guess I was about 35 years old and he was like 35 years old. And that's when we started dating. But the thing about it is, my grandmother and his mother were the best of friends. His mother had 9 children. And my grandmother delivered all 9 of them, including him. I have his birth certificate at my house too, and her name is on his birth certificate. People know me today. Aren't you Ethel Parker's granddaughter? Yes, I am. She taught me how to serve. She taught me how to be a servant. You know, we take life lessons and sometimes we take life lessons for granted. But those lessons are given to us for a reason, because those same life lessons that my grandmother gave me, I'm giving those to my grandchildren right now.
Jean got to have an apprenticeship like no other. She had what must have felt like the equivalent of an MD in maternal fetal care by the age of 12. That care that Ethel gave and Jean grew up on seems hard to find today. And that sense of purpose Jean felt as a preteen from serving her community seems equally hard to come by. If you're interested in supporting health equity for Black women, visit our website, truthbetoldcommunity.com, to find out ways to get involved and share this episode with friends. This series was written by Jackie Glass and Hannah Sobel, edited and hosted by me, Nicole Hill, sound designed by Trindell Lightburn, and our work has been supported by the Virginia African American Cultural Center through a grant from Virginia Tourism Corporation. Follow our work by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts. We couldn't do this without people brave enough to share their experiences. So thank you, Reverend Thoroughgood.